My name is Rachel Delaney. I am 41 years old, and for most of my daughter's 13th year, I was convinced that my mother-in-law was quietly, methodically, deliberately turning her against me. I want to say that differently because it sounds dramatic, and I was raised to distrust dramatic women, raised to file that kind of thinking under paranoid or jealous or insecure. But I had watched it happen carefully over the course of nearly a full year. And what I saw was this. Every time I made a decision about my daughter Nora that Nora didn't like, she went to her grandmother, and her grandmother agreed with her every time. Not about big things at first, small things. Whether Nora could have her phone at dinner, whether she could go to a friend's house on a school night, whether the skirt she'd bought with her birthday money was appropriate for a family gathering. I would make a call, and I was not, I want to say clearly, a rigid mother. I was not the kind of woman who controlled her child's wardrobe or monitored every text message or built walls around normal adolescent life. I thought about my decisions. I tried to be fair. I tried to leave room for the person Nora was becoming. But when I said no to the dinner phone, Nora called Grandma Ellen, and Grandma Ellen said she didn't see the harm in it. When I said no to the Tuesday sleepover, Nora called Grandma Ellen, and Grandma Ellen said she thought I was being a little strict. When I asked Nora to change before the family gathering, Nora went to Grandma Ellen's room and came out 20 minutes later, wearing the skirt, and Grandma Ellen said she thought it looked lovely. My husband Daniel said I was reading into it. He said his mother wasn't strategic. She was just soft, the way she had always been soft, the way grandmothers were soft. He said if Nora called her, of course she was going to take Nora's side. That was what grandmothers did. I said, that is not what grandmothers are supposed to do when it undermines the parent. He said I was being sensitive. I thought about that for a long time, whether I was being sensitive, whether the pattern I was seeing was a real pattern, or a constellation I had assembled from disconnected stars because I was looking for one. But the stars kept appearing. Nora was 13 going on 23. She had her father's jaw and my eyes, and a way of tilting her head when she disagreed with something that was so precisely my own gesture. It sometimes knocked the air out of me. She was funny and opinionated, and had a gift for finding exactly the right word, at exactly the right moment, which in an adult is charming, and in a teenager is formidable. She was not a difficult child in the way that people mean when they say difficult. She was not cruel or reckless or self-destructive. She was, however, extremely persuasive. And she had, at 13, discovered that Grandma Ellen was a door she could walk through when other doors were closed. The thing that bothered me most was not that Ellen undermined specific decisions. It was that she never seemed to see what she was doing. She would look at me with a completely open face. No guilt, no deflection, no awareness that anything was wrong. And explain gently that she just thought Nora had a point. She just thought I might be being a little rigid. She just thought adolescence was hard enough without extra friction. She said the word friction the way other people say cruelty. I started avoiding her, not obviously, not rudely. I was raised in the South, and I know how to be polite at a distance. But I stopped calling her just to talk. I stopped lingering after family dinners. I stopped asking her advice, which I had once done often, because for the first 12 years of Nora's life, Ellen had been one of my favorite people and one of the wisest women I knew. That was the part that made it hardest, the before. The 12 years before 13, when Ellen had been something close to a second mother to me, closer than my own mother in some ways, warmer, more present, more interested in the particular texture of my daily life. She had been there when Nora was born and sat with me through 3 hours of labor before Daniel arrived. She had driven 90 minutes every month for Nora's first year to bring meals and hold the baby so I could sleep. She had remembered every school performance and baseball game and piano recital and brought flowers every single time, not because she was performing grandmotherhood, but because she genuinely wanted to be there. I had loved her. I had told Daniel early in our marriage that I had gotten luckier with his mother than most women got. And now I was avoiding her in her own dining room. By spring, I had said something to Daniel 3 times, and 3 times he had deflected. And by April, I had made a private decision that I would not bring it up again. Not because I had let it go, but because I was tired of the conversation going nowhere and coming back to whether I was being sensitive. Then in May, something happened that I did not expect. Nora failed her history midterm, not barely failed completely, a 51, which her teacher, Mr. Garvey, described in his email as significantly below her demonstrated capability. He asked if anything had changed at home. He said he had noticed Nora seeming distracted in class, and a few times appearing to have been crying, though she had denied it when he gently asked. I read the email twice. Nora had not told me she was struggling. She had not said anything was wrong. She had been, as far as I could see from the outside, her usual self, a little quieter than normal, maybe. But 13-year-olds were frequently quieter than normal, and I had learned not to read catastrophe into every closed door. I went to her room that evening, and I sat on the edge of her bed, and I said, "Mr. Garvey emailed me." She looked at me. For a moment, one very brief moment, something in her face that had been held very tight went loose, and then it closed again. "It's fine," she said. "It was one test." "He said you've seemed upset," I said. "He said he's noticed it for a few weeks." She looked at her hands. "Nora, what's happening?" And she said nothing for a long time. And then she picked at the edge of her thumbnail, the way she had done since she was 4 years old, when she was holding something in. And she said, "Is Grandma Ellen sick?" The room tilted. "What?" I said. "She called me in March," Nora said. "She said she needed to tell me something. She said," and here she stopped and pressed her lips together. And I watched my daughter try very hard to be 13 and composed and failing at it completely. She said she'd been having some tests done. She said she didn't want to scare me, but she wanted me to know in case things changed. She said not to tell you and Dad yet, because she didn't want everyone to worry until she had more information. I sat very still. She said she might need to spend more time with me, Nora said, while she still could. She said she just wanted to be close. The whole year rearranged itself. Every dinner phone, every Tuesday sleepover, every skirt that was lovely, every piece of gentle, unhurried softness extended toward my daughter at every possible opportunity. She had been trying to be close while she still could. She'd been filling up a tank she was afraid was about to start running out. And she had told Nora, my 13-year-old daughter, and not me, not Daniel. She had handed that weight to a child and asked her to carry it quietly for months, and my daughter had carried it alone, in the way that children carry things when adults give them no other option. I did not say any of this to Nora. I said, "When did she tell you?" "March 3rd, Nora said, because she remembered the exact date. Of course she did. "Okay," I said. "Okay. I'm going to talk to Dad, and we're going to find out what's going on." But I want you to understand something right now. You should not have been carrying this, not alone. That wasn't fair to you, and I'm sorry you've been sitting with it." Nora looked at me, and her eyes went very bright, and she said, "She just didn't want everyone to worry." "I know," I said. "I know that's why. But you're not everyone. You're my kid. And my kid doesn't sit alone with this kind of thing." She cried then. The way children cry when they have been holding on for a long time and someone finally tells them they can put it down, all at once, completely, with no management. I held her for a long time without saying anything. Later that night, after Nora was asleep, I called Ellen. She picked up on the second ring, which told me she had been awake, which told me she was the kind of person who waits by the phone when she suspects a call is coming. "Rachel," she said. "Ellen," I said. "Tell me what's going on." A pause. "Nora told you," she said. No accusation, just acknowledgement. "Nora didn't tell me," I said. "Her teacher noticed she'd been crying for weeks. And when I asked her what was wrong, she told me." Another pause. "I didn't want to worry everyone," she said. It was exactly what Nora had said. Word for word. The thing she had told my daughter to say. Or the thing she had said so many times that Nora had absorbed it. "Ellen," I said, "what is happening? Please just tell me." And she told me. She had found a lump in January. She had gone to her doctor in February, who had referred her to a specialist, who had ordered a biopsy in March. She had been waiting since March for results that kept getting delayed, first by a lab backlog, then by a scheduling problem, then by something she described vaguely as a communication issue between two different offices. She had not told Daniel, because she had not wanted to scare him before she knew anything definite. She had not told me for the same reason. But she had told Nora, because, and here her voice shifted slightly, became quieter, because she had looked at Nora one afternoon in late February and thought, if this is bad news, I need her to have more of me before she finds out. I need to have given her more. And she had not known how to do that without explanation, and so she had explained. To a 13-year-old. I want to be honest about what I felt in that moment. It was not clean. It was not the simple, warm flood of understanding that clears everything. I was relieved that Ellen was not what I had thought she was. Not a woman working against me. Not a grandmother who had decided subtly and persistently to position herself between me and my daughter. I was genuinely relieved, with my whole chest, to lose that story. But I was also angry. Not at her fear. I understood her fear as clearly as I have ever understood anything. She had been sitting alone with a possible catastrophe since January, and she had made the choices frightened people make, which are often not the right ones, which are often the ones that protect the frightened person more than anyone else. I was angry that she had given it to Nora, that she had taken a 13-year-old girl and made her a keeper of secrets, that my daughter had cried quietly for weeks in school and come home and sat at dinner and said nothing, had carried it so carefully, had not wanted to worry anyone, had learned that lesson so completely, she'd folded herself almost invisible around it. I said, as evenly as I could, "Ellen, I need you to understand something. I love you. I have loved you for 17 years, and I am not going anywhere. But you cannot put things like this on Nora. She is a child. She should not have been the one holding this." A long silence. "I know," Ellen said. "She's been crying at school." Another silence. "I know," she said again, smaller. "When do you get the results?" "Thursday," she said. this Thursday. Then Daniel and I are coming Thursday, I said. We'll be there when they call. She was quiet for so long that I thought the call had dropped. Then she said, Rachel. Yes. I'm sorry I put it on her. I looked at her and I thought, I need more of her. I need more time. And I didn't know how else to explain that I needed to be close without... I know, I said. I've been so frightened, she said. And her voice, which had been steady all the way through, came apart at that. We stayed on the phone for another hour, not solving anything, not deciding anything, just staying on the phone, the two of us, in the way that you stay close to someone when the distance has gotten too big and there is no fix for it except presence. Thursday came. Daniel and I drove to Ellen's house early in the morning. We sat in her kitchen, the kitchen where I had spent so many ordinary hours over 17 years. And we drank coffee and did not talk about the phone call that was coming and talked about everything else instead. The garden, a neighbor's new dog, whether the coffee maker needed replacing. At 11:17, the phone rang. Ellen answered it, standing at the kitchen counter with her back to us. She said yes several times. She said, I understand. She said, thank you. She hung up. She stood at the counter for a moment with her hand still on the phone. Then she turned around. Benign, she said. Daniel made a sound I have never heard from him before or since. I crossed the kitchen and held her, and she was smaller than I expected. The way people are sometimes smaller than you expect when you finally hold them, when all the months of distance collapse into the actual, physical fact of another person. She said into my shoulder, I'm sorry I scared her. I'm sorry I scared you. I said, you're okay. That's all that matters right now. We picked Nora up from school that afternoon, the three of us. Ellen got out of the car, and Nora saw her, and for a moment just stood very still, her backpack over one shoulder, reading her grandmother's face the way she had learned to read it over 13 years. Then Ellen said, I'm fine, sweetheart. I'm completely fine. And Nora dropped her backpack on the sidewalk and ran. I have thought about that moment many times in the months since. My daughter running toward her grandmother on the sidewalk outside school, backpack on the ground, all the composure she had maintained for weeks simply gone. The way Ellen caught her and held her. The way Nora's face pressed into her grandmother's shoulder. The way it had when she was 4 years old, 5, 6. When the world had been simpler and closeness had required no explanation. Some things I know for certain, now that I did not know then. I know that a grandmother spending every possible moment with her granddaughter is not always about the grandmother. Sometimes it is about a woman who has looked at a possible ending and decided, quietly and imperfectly, that what she needed most was more of the person she loved. I know that I spent months feeling crowded out of my own relationship with my daughter, when in fact what was happening was that another woman who loved her was frightened and didn't know how to be frightened without filling the space around her with the people she might lose. I know that 13-year-olds can carry extraordinary weight. I know they should not have to. I know my daughter did it without complaint, without cracking visibly, without asking for help. And I know that this is both something to be proud of and something to be careful about. We talk differently now, the three of us. Ellen calls me directly when something is wrong. Not Daniel first, not Nora first, me. We made that agreement on her kitchen floor on a Thursday afternoon in May, and she has kept it. And Nora knows now. I have told her directly, more than once, that there is no version of a hard thing that she has to carry alone. that being strong is not the same as being silent, that I would always rather lose a night of sleep to a hard conversation than find out my daughter has been crying quietly for weeks at school. Last month, Nora came to me with something small, a fight with a friend, a misunderstanding that had been sitting between them for a few days. She came to me first, before her phone, before her friend group, before Grandma Ellen. She sat on the edge of my bed in my room, and she told me about it and asked what I thought. I tried very hard not to show her how much that meant. I think I mostly succeeded, but when she left the room, I sat for a minute in the quiet, and I thought about doors, about which ones we close and which ones we leave open, about how much distance can accumulate between people who love each other when fear gets in the way of honesty, about a woman who had spent months trying to be close to her granddaughter because she was frightened she might run out of time, and a daughter-in-law who had watched all of it and understood none of it, and a 13-year-old girl in the middle who had tried so hard to protect everyone that she had forgotten to protect herself. I do not think I was wrong to feel what I felt during those months. I was watching something real, a pulling away, a choosing. I just had the wrong story for it. The real story was simpler and sadder and more human than the one I had built. It was just a woman who loved her family and was scared. That is the story it almost always is.